Some of us have been asking what the heck's going on this winter. The weather is up and down and up and down. We really have had these yo-yo temperatures for sure. And, we'll see it again. We've been warm. Now we're going to get cold again. And what does March look like? Well, Chief Meteorologist at MLive, Mark Torregrossa, has some thoughts on that, too. And he also follows agriculture weather. That has to be interesting, the way conditions have been. Even my little grasses and things and flowers have begun to start to pop up. I think they're confused, too. But anyway, we'll try and talk about all of that this half hour. Mark, thanks for the time. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning there, Richard. How are you doing today?
Great. Appreciate your time today, as always. You know, you were taking a look at the forecast maps for March, and you're saying, man, this could be a little bit more wintry than we're used to.
Than we've been used to in February. We could maybe have a little more winter in March than we had in all of February. Although I got to tell you something. In the last couple of days since I've written that post, the cold snap looks weaker and weaker each day, is something we've seen all winter long. And, you know, computer models are generally pretty good 2 and 3 weeks out at the general trend. You know, we can't say 3 weeks out, you know, this day we'll have a snowstorm and this day will be warm and whatnot. But generally in the trend, you could say, hey, we're going to be several degrees below normal. And I still think we will be colder than we have been, and for a handful of days, colder than normal. But it's already starting to look like it erodes. The cold erodes, maybe a week faster than we thought. And at that case, all along, I expected as the cold eroded, we would go back to the same kind of pattern we've been in, which basically is a trough or storm system out on the west coast and Gulf of Alaska, and you put a big bend in the jet stream there, and then you put the opposite bend in the jet stream in the middle part of the U.S., and that's a warm pattern. So basically we're going to go back, it looks like, to what we've had is storminess out west and warmth in our area.
Is there an overall signal that you see that causes this, or this is just the cycles of winter?
Yeah, it's the cycles of what sets up around the northern hemisphere, and they're the long-term weather patterns. Long-term, I mean 3 to 6 months. You'll get a trough that sets up on the west coast, and it'll be warm in the middle part of the country. Or we've had plenty of winters where the trough sets up on the east coast, and we're in the northerly flow, and we've had really cold winters. So this winter, for whatever reason, the first piece of the puzzle, the strongest piece of the puzzle, is the trough out in Alaska and out in the west, on the west coast, which, by the way, ended the California drought, multi-year severe extreme drought, ended it in about 2 to 3 months' time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting because anybody who has been in California over the last couple of years can attest to how dry it is there. And I was watching a car review, interestingly, that was recorded a couple of years ago in California. This fellow's driving a Cobra, right? No windshield wipers, no roof. And he was traveling from Northern California to Central California over the course of a couple of days. And you just go out like that in California because it hasn't rained in so long, people don't even think about it.
Right. Exactly.
So we managed to change that.
Here.
Yeah, that's right. We sure wouldn't. Yeah, that's true. We're with Mark Torregrossa, Chief Meteorologist at MLive. We'll come back in a moment and talk about March the way he sees it now on 95.3 WBCK. And as well, he keeps an eye on ag weather, too, and that has to have been a bit of a roller coaster for growers. We'll talk about that before our time is up today, too. We're here with Mark Torregrossa, Chief Meteorologist at MLive. You know, when December rolled around, it seemed like we might be in line for an average winter, didn't it?
Yeah, or more. December, Gaylord had one of its snowiest Decembers ever. I want to say it was 60 inches. We were colder than normal. We were snowier than normal, at least in the lake effect side. And we thought that could happen because the lakes were so warm. We figured that there could be a burst of heavy lake effect. And then everything shifted, and we went back to that warmer than normal pattern.
I hear people say pretty regularly now, speaking with some level of caution, saying, are we going to pay for this in May? Do you think the cycle could work its way that way?
I think we're going to pay for it.
Uh-oh.
But I think we're going to pay for it in a hot way.
Oh, really?
Not in a cold way.
Huh.
I don't see the pattern that we're in. I don't see us being cold for a long time period. I just can't see it. We got, first off, and I do a lot of weather presentations to ag groups, to everybody, all kinds of groups, Rotary. I mean, we're all affected by the weather. And one of my main messages now is, first off, we have to all come to grips with the fact that the globe is warming. It's not a hoax. Maybe data has been altered here, and maybe the other side has altered the data there. Who knows? But the globe, the average data shows the globe is warming. That's the underlying foundation of how do you get real cold in a warming globe. Well, you still can, but then you superimpose this pattern that has been persistent of warmer than normal weather in the middle of the U.S. You put those two things combined with warm Great Lakes already at this time of the year, warmer than normal, you just come up with, how do we turn cold? Colder than normal. We don't.
And when you say that
we pace at warmer than normal on through the summer. Now, here's the thing. I think we're going to have ample rain this year. Hot weather doesn't always mean hot and dry.
Okay.
The hot can be knocked down by storms and can mean very warm and wet. And I think that's the kind of summer we have on the way. And then people go, oh no, wet. That's not good either. And by wet, I mean, I don't think we're talking about day after day of rain. I think we're talking, once a week, 1, 2, 3 inch rains, something like that. So
wow.
Infrequent but heavier rainfalls, and that's what a warmer atmosphere does for you.
I want to clarify what you said too. When you say the globe is warming, you're looking at stats from days gone by, right? I mean, you're comparing statistics that you've seen already. You're not just looking around at the future.
Right, yeah, statistics. Yeah, the models into the future, I don't really buy those things a whole lot. When all these agencies come up with, here's what's going to happen in the next 50 years, I don't know. I don't know that we can do that. But when you look at where we've been and where we're at, and you kind of project that line out, you can see that it is warming at a fairly substantial rate. And then you go back to, is it on a time frame that you personally want to worry about? Are you going to worry if Michigan warms up an average of 1 degree in the next 25 to 50 years? Because someone mentioned to me the other day, well, Michigan had palm trees and oceans and was tropical at one point, millions of years ago or whenever. I started thinking, boy, my wife and I just went to Florida for vacation to see palm trees. I'm thinking, what would Michigan be like with palm trees? That would be pretty wonderful, actually, in my mind.
We'd have the Florida tourism up here.
Yeah, we'd have problems.
We're with Mark Torregrossa, Chief Meteorologist at MLive. When we come back in a minute, we'll talk about ag weather and how this up and down yo-yo kind of thing has affected agriculture and how we see that bearing out at the fruit stands and in the grocery stores perhaps over the next few months. A few more minutes with Mark Torregrossa at MLive, Chief Meteorologist there. You spend a fair amount of time looking at the weather just from the general perspective, but you also look at it from the ag perspective. I can't help but think this yo-yo thing has posed some challenges for growers.
Yeah, certainly. First off, the biggest challenge right now immediately is maple syrup.
Yeah, we've heard some of these stories that it's going to take a lot more work, is what I read somewhere.
Well, the weather is so variable that they don't know if it'll be a long season or a short season. You know, maple syrup runs when you get up into the 40s and 50s during the day and then drop back below freezing at night. And they like that. They like 20 for a low and 40 for a high in sunny days. And, you know, we usually get a segment of that. But then all of a sudden when you get 50s and 60s in February, it can shut off the maple syrup. So that's thing number one. Fruit trees. There's no concern just yet. February was starting to speed up the development of buds on the fruit trees, but if we can cool down here in March, it'll slow things down. If we don't cool down and we get into a really warm pattern again in the second half of March, then we do run a risk of blossoms out in April and some sort of freeze coming by. And then finally, you know, for your soybeans, corn, it looks like it's pacing to be an early season unless we turn wet. That's the only thing that'll slow them down. It won't be the temperature, and I think things will be planted early, and we'll have a long growing season.
So how have growers, as far as you know, been trying to mitigate this then? If they're seeing buds and things, they're probably worried.
Yeah, the maple syrup, there's nothing you can do about it unless you can control the temperatures in the atmosphere, and you can't. The fruit trees, is really nothing you can do about it. Farmers that grow corn and soybeans are saying, maybe I'll take a little advantage of this and maybe grow a longer maturity corn, which tends to have a higher yield, has the potential for a higher yield. And, you know, so they're thinking a little bit about that. If they normally grow a 102-day corn, maybe they'll try 104, or if they normally grow a 104-day corn, they might try 106-day.
And, of course, the risk for consumers in all of this is if we get a April freeze, then that could affect supply, and that then affects the prices.
Well, with volatile weather, there's a lot of risks. Yeah, fruit, the April freeze would affect availability and prices, of course. And then also with a warmer atmosphere, I heard a talk, you know, and farmers that grow corn and soybeans are worried about the prices because they've done a great job in the last 5 years, and there's a whole lot of supply. But some experts say we're only one drought year in the Midwest away from lack of supply of things, which, so it's volatility. It's, you know, the prices of things can change quickly if you go from a good growing pattern to a not favorable weather pattern. And that's what a warmer atmosphere does. It can make you hot and dry, or it can make you too wet quickly.
All right. Well, as you said, in your thought process now, we may pay for this later this year in terms of hot weather. We haven't had a bunch of in excess of 90-degree days the last couple of summers, but I presume that when you say it's going to be hotter, that we will this year, or very potentially.
Last summer was hot. Last summer had a lot of 90-degree days. And I think this summer will probably be as hot. I think it will be more humid because I think we'll have more rain this summer. So I could see a lot of 87 to 94 degree days and a lot of 70 to 75 degree nights.
That'd do it, wouldn't it?
Get the pontoon boat ready early.
All right. Well, we will put up a post at WBCKFM.com, and you can see Mark's MLive reports. Click through from there. And your ag website, what's that, too? If growers are listening, maybe they want to check in on that.
Yep, farmerweather.com. And I'm always developing more on it, but it basically answers the questions of what's the rain going to do and what's the wind going to do, and that's what farmers mostly get concerned about.
All right, farmerweather.com. Mark Torregrossa, Chief Meteorologist at MLive. We always appreciate your time. Thank you.
No sweat.